We're ready.
I want to say wholeness to the family. And what we want to do again is kind of make everybody aware that in doing this work, it requires a lot of time, meditation, and to type things out, particularly when you're not a type like I am. It takes time to put things together and try to have it succinct. Therefore, uh, the last time I mentioned about the head and the tail, I haven't gotten those notes out, but I have them today. I just want to send them after the session today. And also, I want to, the ones before there, I want you to discard because I've amended those. And we're trying to make things as succinct, and as clear as we can. And remember now, what I'm trying to do, let me say this, what I'm trying to do is move away from the way that we had saw things, seen things, and had been trying to interpret things, but moving away from that into where we must go, and at the same time have Eitai to give us the symbols within their understanding to help magnify, because I know it's difficult when we are not familiar with our symbol. We are more familiar with contemporary symbols. And all of this, as we've explained about mathematics, is all a part of the great illusion that we've fallen into. So I'm trying to move away, but at the same time, not allow us to maintain the old way of interpreting and looking at things. Because if we do that, we'll find ourselves trapped forever in this dualistic way of viewing things. So we're moving out, but at the same time, trying to clarify scriptures and make them fit within the context of where we must go and how we must, chart this path so that we'll make sure that all flaws are removed and everything is brought back into complete, precise alignment, correct relative position.
Okay.
So I want to kind of just a little small review of the head and the tail. And I'm going to start by saying what is meant by the biblical reference that the head would become the tail, a question. And then we go on to say, when we consider our present level of consciousness and with the awareness of our awakening, we are now quite capable of understanding why the head became the tail and would return to the head. And we use the scriptural references, Isaiah, first chapter 1 through 6. But I'm going to go straight to the 6th verse, and then I'm going to give a little explanation, because then once we get to the 6th verse, it kind of sums up everything. The 6th verse reads, from the sole of the foot even to the head, there is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores. They have not been closed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment. Now, I'm going to take that verse and try to make all of this make sense. And what I'm going to say here is that what we are given here is an obvious description of a condition which appears to have been forgotten. And there was/is an attempt to awaken such a people. Now, mind you, I didn't say who the people were, because traditionally we say, well, that's Israel. And Israel goes back to the contemporary way of viewing things. We're trying to move away from, but into the collective consciousness as to where we must go, as opposed to segregating and not segregating, but opposed to stipulating and dividing and separating, categories and people. That has already been done.
Mm-hmm.
That is already done. So we read, this is why Jeremiah 8:8 stated that the pen of the scribe was in vain, because they no longer were able to reconnect to themselves. We can now understand that when you lose consciousness, there is no more remembrance of a memorial. The zakah, nikivah, if we remember what zakah meant, to remember. Nikivah means to perforate, to puncture. Or yin or yang, male and female, united as one whole species, but is divided as an individual instead of one unified whole. In other words, all people has been divided into individuality instead of one unified whole. It's hard to conceptualize that, because the contemporary mind would say, well, what you mean? You mean there's no evil? Or what to do about the evil? We understand that today. We understand that, because we cover it every day that we online. Continuing on. Here in Isaiah 1 verse 6, there's a response given us, the insight, by saying, from the sole of the feet unto the head, there is no soundness, but wounds, bruises, and putrefying sores that have not been closed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment. This is why the prophet Jeremiah 8:22 recorded that the health of the daughter of my people is not recovered. Now, this is an interesting word here, recovered. Strong's number 5927. And Strong Concordance number 5927 says Allah. Well, we say Allah means to ascend up or to rise, etc. Okay. But that really doesn't what help us that has been without consciousness to understand. Because well, what is the ascension? What is the rise up? So let's go a little further. This process can only occur when the divine feminine and masculine work together, where they are unified from within themselves, that they may perform together to ascend, to arise, to lift up and exalt their higher selves into divinity and wholeness. Now, and I want to stop for a moment. The word divinity has a very interesting definition. And I won't go into what they say, in terms of the adjective, as well as if we look at the noun gives us the kind of clarity that we need. If we look at the noun, it says to discover intuitively. Now, wow. This is something completely different, but when you look at the verb or the adjective, it do not tell you anything about being intuitively, activated, okay? So the word divine, when we use it, we're talking about being intuitively made aware and conscious. That's how we're going to return to wholeness.
Okay.
Going a little further, we go to the English word that helps us to magnify what is meant by their health had not been recovered. Okay, so we go here and say to find an identity again. That means what? The loss of consciousness, you would lose your identity. You would have no idea who you were, who you are. Excellent. You would call yourself Negroes, colored folks, black people. I'm black and I'm proud, and so forth and so on. You call yourself Israelites, you understand? Presbyterian, Muslim, so forth and so on. You don't have no idea who you are. So the word recover has a real significance here. And we find divinity intuitively being inspired. So then we move on. We say health had not been recovered to find identity again, to save from loss and restore to usefulness. Now, what we lost was what? That inner neuromelanin consciousness that had to be restored, that we become useful again. Then it says usefulness, meaning the quality of having utility and especially practical worth or applicability. Now that means then when we go back and read Isaiah, we saw that we were what? Worthless, because he gave an example of a ox knowing his, his owner, and an ass his master's crib. But Israel, people don't know who you are, who they are, and what they're doing. They're useful, and they don't have no use.
That's right.
They're useful. Continuing on, that utility means fitness for some purpose or worse to some end. So now once we become what? Unify in our inner melanin consciousness again, we now have a usefulness. We become fit, qualified for the purpose of bringing all things back into perfection and wholeness and oneness forever. Continuing on. There are two words we will use to magnify this condition, which we have read about. They are mollified with ointment. The word mollified is 7601. Mollified. Strong is 7601. And it means sha'az. And sha'az means to plunder. Now, so how does mollified in the Hebrew mean sha'az? It means to plunder, to spoil. So it says had not been mollified, with ointment. So prior to any significant change, everything would be what? Plundered, destroyed, and would be a spoil to all those, you understand, that would find a people in the country. In other words, we would be used, just as we has been used, because we had no value. And we continue on, it says, although the English helps us to clarify the concept, in its meaning is to reduce the rigidity, to soften with the other. Now, to soften with others. So here now, it's a very significant point here, because rigidity, is a result of inability to change. And the more you become rigid, the less you are able to change conditions. And all of this is brought about because of the what? The programming and the teaching and the process of what we have lived out. And so when we find this rigidity in an individual or people, almost impossible for them to change. Then it says, because they had not been mollified with ointment. Ointment, Strong's Concordance was 8081. And this becomes interesting here because it says the word shaman.
Oh my goodness.
Shaman means to shine. Now, Okay, but if the change has not occurred, the unity has not occurred, you would just be a shaman, but you would not be able to shine. You wouldn't even acknowledge that you are a shaman, one that is able to shine. Now, this is when we come now to understand the etymology of the word here, ointment.
Not,
It
I
from,
say,
huh?
not to interrupt your flow, but I just got to say,
Go ahead.
you done hit on again a direction that I was going. Now I'm gonna talk about the word. Now you put the word up there, shaman or shaman. See,
Right.
we getting ready to go into Shimon
Absolutely.
and Shema, Israel.
Right.
Keep doing what you're doing because this is perfect.
So we go to the English etymology, and it gives us a key here. We find it says from Middle English to alter by using some kind of salve or oil to anoint oneself. And we got to understand this is figuratively. This is not something physically, because we've been putting on oil, and shining ourselves up forever. But it ain't brought about any significant change, has it? Thus was to reveal that once the altering process from rigidity to softness / harmonious balance had to take place. And when it took place, we would return to plenteous, meaning fruitful and productive.
Yes.
But if that figurative understanding was not, understood, you would just be what? Figuratively putting on some oil and anointing yourself and whatever, but that wouldn't change nothing. We had to understand that there was an alteration of our rigidity to softness and harmony and balance had to take place before we could return to plenteous, meaning fruitful and productive. Continuing on. In this particular devolution of the descent of the primary energy of femininity, that which occurs was the loss of one's inner neural melanin consciousness. Thereafter, the consequences of this was called the fall or death of the feminine energy being primary to what is now called the Adamic civilization, leading everyone to a false perception as to the truth about the real head becoming the tail. And what we need to understand at this point is that when reading verse 13 of Isaiah 9, it gives us something here. It says, and the Lord shall make thee the head and not the tail. And this is Deuteronomy 28, 1, 2, and 13. Verse 13 says, and the Lord shall make thee the head and not the tail, and thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath, if thou hearken unto the commandments of the Lord thy God, which I command thee this day, to observe and to do them. So we see now, what we had to do, it was not to hearken unto a command like we've understood the laws that have been established by, Galileo and what he talked about, the laws that he came up with. It had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with the law of unity, harmony, and oneness and wholeness that we had to return to. And in doing that, we then would be able to what? Be unified, wherein that we could work together, the Zachar and the Nikibar, as opposed to bashing one another, being in opposition to one another, preventing wholeness and unity from occurring. So we close with, we can now see clearly that the health that had not been recovered of the daughter of my people is the regaining of their full inner neuromelanin consciousness, which is the recovering of true health. So I just want to kind of go over that and kind of like synchronize it just a little bit more, so will it be a little bit more palatable and clear for us to conceptualize. So we're going to close that point, Eitai. And my other point I want to bring up, there's a short documentary that I think everybody needs to see, and I'm going to make sure that I email it out to everybody. It's about this particular writer, Dan Brown, who wrote the Da Vinci Code, and a couple of key statements that he made in it. And I want to use them because we continue to do this daily, and we'll be looking for something other than what we've already found. And he uses some, he said, the guy asked him a question. They say, are you talking about symbols? And he said, yeah. He said, symbols, they are our language to help us understand our past. This is what we're doing every day, symbols, right? Then he goes on to make this statement. He says, okay, he says, how he used the term how critical it was for us to come into what he would refer to as collective consciousness to replace God. That was, I thought, was quite interesting. A collective consciousness that would eventually replace the concept of God, because we're talking about how God and religions, and he was saying that he felt we'd be very, very much okay without religion and without God. Yeah, he said that we would come to a collective consciousness to replace God. Then this is the quote. He said, quote, we will start to find our spiritual experience through interconnection with each other. Quote, end the quote. He says, consciousness, he said, forecasting the emergence of some form of global consciousness that we perceive to become divine. So now we'll go back to the word divine again. It meant to discover intuitively. And of course, everything that we're talking about, it had to come from within. It's an intuition that was once possessed by the feminine, divine feminine element of creation within the physical realm we refer to as the woman. And now we begin to understand that this intuitive nature was to be active within both male and female, because both male and female is what makes up any particular living species. The unified wholeness of that is what produces this complete, total, and whole unified species. So divinity is a part of us returning to our intuition and utilizing it, as opposed to looking external for any solutions or any problems, because it would reside already within us. So I just wanted to close out with that, Eitai.
Excellent, Nasik. Excellent. And we're in total harmony, total agreement, and singularity of thought. This this idea of intuition is so critical, because that is our starting point. That is one of the first things that we are going to have to begin to rely on and develop as we move into this next dimension of existence, which is the dimension of wholeness. We are literally transporting ourselves through thought from the unfolded realms of the material world, being in the world, into the enfolded realms of the non-material, outside or beyond the space-time continuum. So this is very critical, and it's not so much going to involve um, intellect like that. However, it will involve intelligence. I'm making a difference because each of us possess an intellect according to the mind and how it functions. But we're not depending on that. We are depending on an inner inherent intelligence that we all possess, but we have seldom used. So this idea of intuition, very important. It is the primary thing that we must develop. And like Nasik said, that this intuition is an aspect of the feminine element or feminine energy, because we are all familiar with the term women's intuition or mother wit. This is something that we all possess, again, but we seldom pay attention to, we seldom hearken to, and we make the mistake of ignoring this. And then what do we say? Man, I should have listened to my first mind. Well, that is what we're referring to as intuition. It is a feminine, just like Nasik said, it is a feminine aspect. And again, it proves that the feminine is what? Primary. Again, not superior, because we do not think in those terms, or we should not think in those terms. We're thinking in terms of primary. Someone has to go first. Something has to precede what? In the realm of the unfolded reality. As things unfold, it goes step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, correct? Or A, B, C, D, E. Monday,
Absolutely.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. This is just how things unfold. So the feminine intuition is always primary. And as we begin our ascension, we understand that we are focusing on the correct element, the appropriate element, and that is this feminine aspect. And what I want to do again, as I stated yesterday, is to provide a framework within which we can organize our thoughts that are what? Intuitively given to us. Organize, and I see this knowledge,
Right.
and to further enhance our ascension, because it's going to be us that does it. No outside force, just inward power. Intuition comes to the forefront. And we said, let the star guide us, or let the stars guide us. So the star is that represents that feminine energy, as we talked about. So yesterday we set again the prophetic framework so that we know exactly where we are. And if you were present, we understand and we stated that we are at the very end of this process, the end of a cycle. And as Nasik put it, the tail is about to do what? Become the head. Or
That's it.
in other words, recover its position.
Right.
Recover its position. So we talked about yesterday the influence of the feminine energy and how even our enemies, our oppressors, understood this. And all of the major actions in history, even the altering of a definition of a word, corresponds to our movement prophetically. Corresponds to our movement prophetically. We are on a divine timetable. And if it is divine, Nasi, then that means it is intuitively recognized and understood.
Right.
So again, what we're doing is providing a framework, a track to run on, so that we can best exercise this intuition and understand this timetable and know what to be focusing on. So as we move through the prophetic timetable, we took a look at Isaiah 51, 9 through 23. And at the end of the day, hopefully, we provided a connection and a synthesis between all of the symbols that we had provided. We ended up in these last two verses. Matthew 24, 29 through 31, and Daniel 12, 2 and 3. Each of these scriptures are speaking on eschatological events. When we talk about eschatology, we are talking about end time prophetic events. End time prophetic events. And again, we are right at the end, Nasik.
Right there.
So it is necessary that we have a proper comprehension of these times, of the seasons, because whether we're conscious of it or not, our movement in terms of ascension, in terms of the evolution and the revolution of consciousness, is causing these things. So what we want to do is move from an unconscious position to a conscious position. And,
Absolute.
and we're going to find out that we can deliberately do things and command things into existence. And this is going to be both an individual effort and a collective effort. What we've done here in these many sessions that we've had so far is to create an energetic vortex. And that vortex is charging through neuromelanin that you possess, it is charging it up based on words, symbols that are designed to activate it. And the better that we, as Nasik said, the better that we can intuit these symbols and these signs, and as well as what? Our position in time in the unfolded reality. The better that we can pinpoint where we are will inform us of exactly what we need to be doing, Nasik, in terms of focusing our attention.
Absolutely. Right.
All right.
Right.
So Matthew 24:29 through 31. Matthew 24:29 through 31. And we want to concentrate again now so you can put our focus on these signs and symbols. Now we're beginning now to move from signs and symbols in a book, on a page, you understand, in a picture, and to venture out or venture within ourselves, better stated, and draw these things out. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, and what did we define the tribulation as, Akamari? What did we define the tribulation as? What period of time? The tribulation.
Time of Horiphiel.
I'm going to give you a hint, Akamari. The tribulation. You see?
Slavery.
The 400-year period of slavery. All right? That 400-year or so period of slavery. So again, what we did is target that period being at least officially or on paper ended about 1864, Nasik, according to the legislation. And we gave a framework of the things that occurred prior to, on that date, with the 13th Amendment being passed on April 8th, 1864, and then 1865, with the end of the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln's assassination, the ratification of the 13th Amendment, the forming of the Ku Klux Klan, and the New York Stock Exchange. Now, just to take and add some detail to the New York Stock Exchange and to explain why that was so important. Because now, see, everything that is within this time period has to do with us specifically. So, when we were slaves, were we working for money?
No.
Absolutely not. So, the end of the Civil War caused a shift in the economy. The ending of the Civil War didn't have anything to do with anyone's compassion toward us. Well, we have to understand we have no friends but ourselves. And understanding the foreknowledge or the knowledge of forethought We shouldn't even be looking for friends like that. Again, we should be looking to ourselves for our answers. So there was a shift, and this is what the Civil War predicted, that they saw a shift from an agrarian society to what? An industrialized society. And we saw historically the Industrial Revolution beginning in England. And you remember that was our parents, England, America's
Right,
parents, not our parents, but America's parents.
right, right.
And so they had fought a war of independence from Britain. Now they see Britain, that never was an agricultural power. That's why Britain is always colonizing into Africa and into places that have rich natural resources like America, right? And
Yeah,
Kane
and
still doing it.
they began to develop industrially and to gain an economic advantage on America. Sorry, Amari, go ahead.
I said Kane is still doing it today. If you look and see what Britain is doing in Zimbabwe.
Correct. But we must understand that all of this has to do, it always has its inception in terms of us, in terms of
yeah,
us. And we're explaining that now. So the economy, in anticipation of this now renewed competition with Great Britain, the economy had to shift. And so they took a labor force that they were not paying, shifted from, and you remember the cotton gin and all that kind of stuff, that's industrial.
right.
Shifted from an agrarian society to what? An industrialized society. And we went as unpaid workers, right, on a plantation to what? In the South, to paid workers in plants in the North.
Mhm.
Are you all
Right,
with me?
right.
Yeah,
So there had to be now an economic institution that would be put in place to run the economy. Now, let's trace this now. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. That had everything to do with economics. If we know the history, if we know the correct history, and why he was assassinated. The United States during the Civil War had uh, incurred debt because of that war. At that time, the currency was greenbacks. That was backed by what? Gold. And so the Europeans came over, led by the Britons, by the British rather, and said, look, we'll lend you the money. So become in debt to us and we'll pay the bill, but we want you to switch from a gold backed currency to what? A fiat currency. I want y'all to hear this now. Abraham Lincoln said no. Very shortly after that, what happened? Bang. You heard the shot.
wow.
Correct? Now, this is all related to us now. So, what happened to the Southern Army? Those generals, they just became the Ku Klux Klan. They became the
Wow.
police. They became the police force, the patrolmen, the paddy rollers, the ones that you just chased the slaves down. They just kept their position, and they assumed one of our symbols as a knight, not a black knight, Nasik,
Wow.
but a white
Wow.
knight.
Wow.
So the economy shifts. They start the New York Stock Exchange, which ain't nothing but a gambling house. Let's be for real. That does what? Shifts fiat currency around from one situation to another one. So we get these jobs, and currently, what are we worried about in terms of a job? We're talking about benefits. What's one of the major benefits that we want to attain? Retirement. What is your retirement based off of? The stock exchange. So they got you whether you're working or not. Every time they've crashed the stock exchange, starting in 29, people when I see was jumping out of windows. Why? Because
Yeah.
all of their savings toward retirement was affected. Same thing that happened in the 80s and in the 90s, and recently with the bubble that they burst, with the subprime market, right? They lost trillions of dollars in retirement. Where did it go? What happened? See, it's not news no more, so we don't talk about it. But this is related to us. It has put us in a mentality of being what? Workers, still. And the New York Stock Exchange is what fuels it. How many people have a 401k account or have had one? How many times do you go in there and change it and watch it and do all that kind of stuff? Probably as often as I did, not often. But
That's true.
but not say, we've become dependent upon these things to a certain extent. So this is why in 1886 that the New York Stock Exchange opened its first permanent headquarters in New York, New York. And so in 1866, Reconstruction starts, slavery is over, the migration from the South begins, right? The switch over, all this was planned, the switch over from the agrarian society in the South to the industrial society in the West, which became what? More advanced into the technological society that we all depend on. Everybody on here is on a computer. 20 or 30 years ago, that would have been that's not the norm. Everybody on here, just like Nasik picked up his cell phone. Some of us have 2 cell phones, maybe 3. Everybody in our family has a cell phone. So we become dependent upon this. Now the cell phone has become now listen, where we used to remember everyone's phone number. If you like me, if you lose your phone, nobody gets a phone call but a few people, because we don't remember phone calls like that no more. It has become a banking tool, our major communication tool. And what has this put to the background? Intuition. We used to be able to communicate telepathically, or telepathically rather. There was no need for any of this. But we've been slowly what? Conformed into this thing. So all of this stuff we have to understand. It has to do with us. we'll talk a little bit later about the Indian Wars, because again, we have not, we've been told that we are Africans. And, that was the end of the story. But there's a larger story that needs to be told. So again, this prophetic framework leads us to Matthew 24 and 29. And again, Amaria, the tribulation of those days, immediately after the tribulation of those days. What was the tribulation of those days, brother?
Slavery.
That 400-year slavery period. So we are, for all intents and purposes, in that period that immediately followed the tribulation of those days, correct?
Correct.
It says the sun shall be darkened, the moon shall not give her light. That is something that has occurred. The stars shall fall from heaven. That has not occurred. And the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. Again, has not occurred. And again, once we go back in some future classes and talk about Eta Carinae, that supernova that they're expecting, scientists are expecting to what? Go supernova, explode, and have concomitant effects on the sun as well as the earth. We're going to understand that the stars falling from heaven and the powers of heavens being shaken has not occurred in the celestial heavens, all right, yet. And then it says, shall appear, now look, the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Now, we're not talking about this sign appearing up in the sky somewhere. We're talking about something that would occur with our consciousness, with our mentality. Then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the coming of the Son of Man in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. We have to understand when we look at Nasik, when we look at these scriptures, that what? Everything occurs energetically first. In the invisible realm first. In the realm of thought and energy first. In the what? Enfolded realms. And then it manifests so everyone can see it, what? In the unfolded realms.
That's correct.
In terms of a process or a physical or observable event. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet. They call that the last trump, y'all.
Yeah, that's what they call it.
Let that marinate. The last trump. I'm gonna let that marinate. The last trump. Y'all looking at that Cheeto. When you think of that Cheeto, that Cheeto with the wig on, that's the last trump. That's the last Trump y'all gonna have to ever worry about. Believe me.
Yes.
I think I love. Hey, he's doing a fantastic job.
Fantastic job. Absolutely.
Fantastic job.
Yes.
Bringing this thing down. Showing just how inept these individuals are. He's doing a fantastic job.
Okay.
Especially up against coming right after Barack and Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they shall gather together. Now we talked about Nasik gathering these sparks, gathering this light. And the way that you're going to gather it is not going to be mentally. It's going to be intuitively. It's not going to be with, we're going to find out, with the hearing of the ears, or the seeing of the eyes, or the working of the mind, even. It's going to be intuitively. These things, as the scriptures say, are spiritually or energetically or intuitively discerned. So he shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heaven to the other. We have to know that we are participating in this gathering currently.
Dang.
Daniel 12, 2 and 3, and many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth. Now again, in the dust of the earth. In the dust of the earth. When we think of the dust of the earth, I want us to think about a seed
Mm-hmm.
that fell into the dust of the earth. And then it put forth what? Roots.
Mm-hmm.
And then it put forth what? A stem. And then it put forth what? Branches, correct?
Dang.
Now see, we're getting ready to talk about this fruit.
Right.
They shall
Productive fruit.
awake. They shall awake. That means that they will begin to what? Grow, sprout.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Some to everlasting life, because the seed was planted in what? Good ground. Some to shame and everlasting content, because the seed, Nasik, was planted in the mind.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it did what? It activated not neuromelanin, but it activated the ego.
Yes.
So
Mm.
individuals with the knowledge, they took that knowledge and ran with it. It was planted in the mind, and they became what? Super Muslims, super Hebrews,
Mm-hmm.
super humans. Do you understand what I'm saying? Super
Can't.
Rastas,
Can't,
super
Eitai.
Christians,
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
super Caucasians, super Negroes.
Right.
Are y'all with me?
Can't.
Yeah.
But if it's planted in the spirit, if it's planted in good soil, to everlasting life.
Eitai.
Okay.
I don't mean to break you up, but right here, I think when we say good soil, what we're talking about is the soil of unity and oneness and wholeness. And once it's planted in that ground,
Absolutely.
then that
Yes.
is what magnifies it.
Now,
Can't.
see,
Now
this is
see.
what we're talking about anyway. The seed
Yeah.
is whole anyway.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And they that be wise, okay, I want you all to concentrate on that word wise, shall shine. And Nasik already talked about what? The shemen, right, Nasik?
Right.
That
Right.
oil, he's already expounded upon that, shall shine as the brightness of the firmament. Now, the brightness of the firmament is what is referred to as an ionized cloud or ionized gas. And this is what Do David was talking about, plasma, which was the fourth element. We'll get back to that. And they that turn many to righteousness, what? As stars forever and ever. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words, seal the book, even to the time of the end. We're at the time of the end. And this knowledge is increasing. and it is increasing if you're paying attention on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
On a daily basis, moment by moment. Now, we want to concentrate on this sign of the Son of Man because this is going to be very instructive unto enlightenment. And this is going to connect right in with what Nasik talked about. The sign of the Son of Man, that word sign is the word semeion. Semeion. And if you recall yesterday, when I saw that, I said it is related to the word Simon or Simeon because semeion is a Greek word. And if you recall, I said I know that it's related to Simeon or Simeon or Shimon or Simon in the Greek. And I said we would get back. Well, we're back to it and we're going to get into it. Shimon is the word that we translate as Simeon or Simon. And this is going to connect this right into the framework of what we've been talking about these many weeks now, Nasik, and days.
Mm-hmm.
Simeon is the second son of whom? Not Jacob and Rachel, Jacob and Leah. So we know that Leah and Esau represent what? The recessive traits and characters and behavior. I'm going to say that again. Esau and Leah represent recessive traits, behavior, and character as it relates to melanin. That Jacob and Rachel represent what? The dominant traits, character, and behavior as it relates to melanin and dark energy consciousness, dark matter energy. Are you all with me?
Mm-hmm.
Genesis 49, 5 and 7. You remember that when Jacob was old, he prophesied allegorically about each one of his sons.
Right.
So this is instructive now. They represent recessive traits. Let's see if the prophecy was positive or negative.
Come on, Eitai.
Simeon and Levi are brethren. Instruments of cruelty are in their habitations.
Yeah.
Oh, listen to this now. O my soul, come thou not into their secret, nor unto their assembly. Mine honor, be not thou united. Causing for, now see, you slipped up and said segregation in that one spot, but this is a call for what? Segregation.
Yeah.
Look, did Martin Luther King Jr. confide in Young? He said, I think we're what? Integrating into what? A burning house.
A burning house. Yep. Yep.
With these recessive, aberrant individuals. Be not thou united. Now, we're not just talking about in a social manner. We're talking about in a manner of how we operate with this knowledge, Nasik. And again, I go back to a few, well, actually, it was more than a few sessions ago where we talked about a lot of times what we do is when we receive this knowledge intuitively. We want to run to a source to what? Verify. Instead of, an outside source to verify it, instead of what? Recognizing how we got it intuitively and verifying the experience within ourselves.
Okay.
The
Yes.
ancestors, when I would get these things, they said they would always use this term, Nasik, that's self-evident.
Right, right,
So they were training me to what? Trust myself
right.
and to verify things by myself. Now, that doesn't mean I don't read and I don't look at videos, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
use it. If someone contradict, if a Caucasian is on there contradicting it, that don't change my mind.
Right.
I understand it. I'm not into the intellectual aspect of it.
Right.
If I'm looking
Just
at the video, I might look at a video that doesn't agree and what? Take all of the information that does agree.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, see, that's
Okay.
what they do
Yes.
absolutely,
to
absolutely.
support their hypothesis. They pick and choose. This
Yes.
thing that Amaria brought up yesterday about Nefertiti, that they supposedly got the DNA from a skull, and then they come up with a white woman that they make from ancient Egypt. So I don't even get
Right.
excited about that because I know it just don't make no sense that they doing
Right.
what they need to do
Right.
to keep
Yes.
themselves in that false simulated
Yes.
position of authority.
Okay.
So now see, my attention
Uh,
don't go to that.
right, right,
My
right.
attention goes to those things that are within me, that knowledge within
Mm-hmm.
me that I'm attempting to what? Bring to the forefront,
Yes. Yes.
that hidden knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So this
Good.
word Shimon, that is connected to the sign of the Son of Man, and this is perfect. Now see, Shimon means hearing with acceptance. That's just what I talked about. When you hear
Yes.
something intuitively, accept it.
Mm-hmm.
Learn to trust it. That's how
Mm-hmm.
you strengthen things. Now, listen, you're going to have to distinguish between your ego speaking to you, because up till now, see, we're where we are today because we've listened to that ego.
Mm-hmm.
And we become what? Separated. We become Rastafarians. We become Christians. We become
Mm-hmm.
Messianic Jews. We become Messianic Christians. We become Messianic Hebrews. We be,
Mm-hmm.
we become this type of Muslim and that type of Muslim and this type of Negro and that type of Negro. Republicans, Democrats, light skin, good hair.
Right.
Very division.
Come on.
That's what the ego.
Very,
That's what the ego does, huh?
That's all the ego. This is what I
Right.
was talking to you about,
Right.
Maria. There's one ego, but what? A multiplicity of
multiple.
manifestations of the ego.
Yeah.
Right, right.
You just got to cut the head off.
Mm-hmm.
You got to cut the whole head off the ego and kill that stuff. So we
Mm-hmm.
must begin to understand, to discern rather. I don't want to say understand, to discern the difference between intuitive knowledge and knowledge
Right.
that is coming from what? Our intellect that is only going to feed our ego. This is Shimon. This is the sign, Nasik, of the Son of Man. that knows that will tell us that we are ascending in what? This prophetic end time eschatological period. Is that,
Yeah.
do we get it? Do we get it?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
So Shimon has to do with hearing with acceptance. That is the sign that you can hear. This is what Nasik was talking about. And it was all tied in to a language that is not Hebrew, that is not Aramaic, that is not Arabic, that is not Sanskrit, that damn sure ain't English.
Right.
But you have to be able to hear and intuit in that language.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever language it is, German, French, you have to be able to intuitively discern meaning.
Yeah.
So again, Shimon, the root word, the primary root is Shema. Come on, y'all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Come on.
And this
Come
is
on,
what,
Eitai.
this
Right.
is what we've been taught from the beginning. That the most important, Nasik, organ on the body is what?
Yeah. Ear.
Here.
The ear.
And it's not the
Mm-hmm.
physical ear like that. It is your ability to what? Hear or intuit with acceptance.
Comprehend.
To
Yeah.
hear or intuit with acceptance. Your
Mm-hmm.
acceptance that, yeah, I heard that. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm beginning to trust in what? My
Self.
intuitive ability. My
Yeah.
intuitive ability. And again, back to Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, first verse. If thou shalt hearken diligently. And then as Nasik talked about it, it goes on to say, Nasik, I believe is that 6th verse or the 13th verse in Deuteronomy 28. And that 13th verse, Amaria, corresponds to the death card, death of the ego. And when we have successfully killed the ego, verse 13, the head what? The tail becomes the head, and we become what? Above only,
Mm-hmm.
not below. So again, this is talking about this cycle that is changing over as we speak. And because we are speaking about it, because our attention is focused on it, it is aiding, supercharging what? This turning. This turning. So,
Eitai.
yes, sir.
Makiel.
Cain.
Wholeness and oneness to the family. See, those who are on this call right now have actually practiced that because that's how we got to this point.
Yes, sir. Trust it.
Exactly.
Trust it.
That's how we got to this point.
Yes, sir.
So those who are on this call have practiced what you just teaching because we came from all four corners of the planet. And how did we get here? By listening to our inner voices. When we heard a certain word, we was like, oh man, I like that. You know?
And Malky, excellent high point. And Nasik, we surely weren't getting no support.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
No support.
Okay.
Quiet.
Okay.
So I mean, great point, excellent point, high point. That by virtue of the fact that we are here,
Yes.
we have the ability to what? Shema,
Yes.
to hearken diligently. Excellent high point, shows. Excellent high point.
Hey, Eitai,
Kane.
this is since y'all bring up this point, I gotta confirm this for us to magnify what we're talking about here. This is in the Messiah and the end of the world, and what you stated about didn't get no support. Now listen to what I'm finna read here. It's in the very last page, page 164 in the book. Okay.
Okay.
Now I'm gonna start at the bottom of 63. Bear with me because this is gonna really highlight something. He says,
Nasik.
it's Messiah and the end of the world, page 163. He says, do not be disillusioned by the obvious pain and perils of the struggle. Forget not, we turn from God. We despise the manner by which we were to govern our inheritance. We were not circumspect. We desired to be like unto the ungodly nations round about us. Thus we were given over into the hands of adversity. We were allowed to be like unto them. Now we behold in sorrow our people that have been fashioned into the image of our adversaries. Whereas at this very late hour, we understand and no longer desire to be like unto them. We despise our former lusts. We loathe what we have become. We see a mind so evil that it could be compared with a cancerous running sore. All that is in, that's Isaiah, what I just got through reading.
That's correct. That's correct.
Now we desire our God mind, our mind of divinity, our mind of unity and oneness and wholeness. We seek another place whose builder and maker is God. We desire our God image again. Now here we go. I had to set the tone. He said, needless to say, it is such easier said than done. For our inheritance is like unto a city built upon a very broad field. Inside there are all good things, even life everlasting. But there's but one path, and it is very narrow indeed, comparable to the size of one man's body. On both sides of the path, there are pitfalls and dangers, even consuming fire on the left and deadly stinging hornets on the right. Then there are four kinds standing before the entrance. There is he that looks into the narrow entrance, laden with dangers, and for the fear in his heart, he chokes the word and does not enter thereupon. Then there is he that enters thereupon and has no discipline of soul. Wherefore he falls thereupon and is consumed. He falls therefrom and is consumed. Then there's he that is listened somewhat, but hates the world. He enters thereupon and becomes, and because he has only listened somewhat, his balance is not perfect. Thus he is burned and stung sometimes, but he continues on and makes it through. But he is gravely wounded. His wounds may or may not be healed. Then there is he that does not choke the word. He listens and can hear truth and thus discipline his soul. He hates the world and loves the kingdom. Subsequently, he enters thereupon and walks the straight and narrow path unto his inheritance. The inheritance in the new world has been made narrow, full of sorrow, peril, travail, and pain. But remember, the entrance in the beginning was wide and sure, and brought forth immortal fruit. Thus, if you labor not to enter therein, you can never receive those things that are in store for you. If we do not pass the danger set before our inheritance, we shall never receive it. He that has ears to hear, let him hear. It's the size of one body. Can't nobody walk this path but you by yourself.
Yes.
And believe
Yes.
me, you have to go within in order
Yes.
to confirm for yourself.
Yes.
And if you can't do that, believe me, you ain't gonna get no support from your friend.
Okay, now see, just like that.
No, no.
Just like that. Just like that. Now see, we know. We know.
So we know. Yeah.
Okay, just like that. Wow.
So I just wanted to magnify that a little bit there because
That's
you
perfect. That's love that.
Yes, sir.
All right, continuing on. This word Shema, Nasik, means to hear intelligently, or
right.
to hear based on what? This inner intelligence. This inner intelligence, not with the intellect or the mind, which leads to what? Just the ego gratification and the manifestation of the ego, but to hear intuitively. You'll know when you hear it.
Yes.
But you must trust it.
Yes.
You must hear with what? Acceptance. And it says, often with the implication of what? Attention. Where attention goes, energy flows. So this is what we're emphasizing.
It's 12 o'clock.
Excuse me, I'm going to pause for a second. Okay, this is what we're emphasizing by providing a clear and clearly defined prophetic framework, like we said at the beginning. It allows us to more perfectly what? Focus our attention, thereby causing energy to flow there and then acting as an activation of this power. Isaiah, again, Nasik 11, 1-4.
Okay.
And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Yeshai, Jesse.
Right.
And a branch shall grow forth from where?
His roots.
Out of his roots. This is all our science. This is all framed in the language and the symbolism of the science that what? We are becoming reacquainted with. Now see that we are recovering and what? Remembering.
And remembering.
And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him. Again, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding. The Spirit of counsel and might. The Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. And shall make him what? Of quick understanding. This is where we're at. And again, it's in this process, this quick understanding is in this process of intuitive knowledge and the acceptance, the ready acceptance, the quick acceptance of that intuitive knowledge.
This is awesome here because I'm looking at power versus force, confirming everything that you say
Absolutely.
about this acceptance. What actually takes place.
And
Go ahead, Eitai.
that the acceptance, when he talks about the acceptance, that is the starting point, right?
Right, right.
Acceptance is the starting point, but this is the exact same thing that we're saying about intuition as being the starting point of what? Ascension to
Yeah.
these what? In the attainment of these higher levels of consciousness. It goes hand in hand. In the fear of the Lord, and he shall not judge, listen, after the sight of his eyes, nor reprove after the hearing of his ears. So it's not the physical sense organs like that, but these spiritual or energetic sense organs. But with righteousness, now this is uprightness, when we shall stand up from what? Our bent position. When? Immediately after the tribulation of those days. And he shall judge the poor and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth. And we understand that the meek will do what? Inherit the earth. So we must be talking about this very end portion of this cycle. This is important. And I want the sisterhood that is present to pay very close attention to this, because this is going to lead us into the next phase, which is going to be instructional.
Eitai,
Uh-huh.
I want to ask the question.
Go ahead.
You know, this intuitiveness, attention, or understanding, I equate that with you, but you are beginning to trust your inner self.
That's correct.
You know what I'm saying? Because if you don't first trust your inner self, then you're not going to be willing to hear or listen to anything.
That's correct. That's correct, brother. Absolutely correct.
That nullifies Christianity, doesn't it?
But it nullifies every belief system.
Every belief, correct.
But excellent point. You know, up to this point, we've trusted in what? Doctrines.
Right.
We've been part of cults of personality. We followed individuals. You know, because what? They were articulate, they were intelligent, and we trusted their articulation of the truth, or so-called truth, and their intelligence above our own. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But with righteousness shall he judge the poor and reprove with inequity the meek of the earth. Now, sisterhood, since you all are primary, and it says he here, but again, I'm going to put this in parentheses because it is talking about he, because it's talking about the rod. All right. But you're going to find out that when we look at the tarot cards, not only do the sisters have the rod, they got that sword as well. So now remember, the sisterhood should be blessing themselves, blessing the immediate family, and blessing this process. Start to use the power of the tongue. You all have that power inherently. And by blessing the brotherhood, you will activate the power within us. which will first be Nasik, the rod, and then will be the sword. You remember we showed the tarot cards. The sisters have the rod and the sword, right?
Yeah. Right.
But the brothers have the rod first, and the sword is what? On the table until the sisters what? Activate that within us. With what? The sword of their mouth. I'm telling y'all, we know how to do this. We know how to do it. We got to trust it now.
Gotta trust it.
Yes.
And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. This fight is on. This fight is on. We got to pick up our weapons and start using it. The enemy is threatened. They have to be. This is what we talked about yesterday. Everything that we're doing now, Nasik, is causing the integrity of the simulated reality to what? Disintegrate
Right.
and crumble.
Right.
Absolutely.
Believe me, they are aware of it.
Yes. No doubt. Eitai.
And it requires a response. So I'm telling you up front, pick your weapons up. Start to use them. Bless yourself, your family, immediate family. Bless this process and individuals that Nasik, I've done it. And my Isha, my family have done it with great results. You create first a spiritual vortex. We're going to look at this thing.
Look out, Kalai. Look out.
We're gonna look at this thing. But we have to begin to strengthen. This is Nasik talking about putting on the whole armor. Now, if we go back, I believe, to Isaiah, I think it's Isaiah 11, is going to talk about this armor that is coming on. That this individual or these individuals will put on. Here it is, verse 5. Righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his reins. It's starting to talk about this spiritual what? These spiritual garments, these spiritual bodies that what? We must strengthen. We must strengthen. This is Joseph and his Technicolor dream coat. This is the robe that they put on Yeshua. This is the robes that the priest wore. Are you all with me?
Yeah.
These are the skins that Adam and Kava were covered with. Come on now. In the New Testament, it says, put on the whole armor of God, right? This is what this is talking about. This is what this is speaking to. So, I want to show. So, this is.
Eitai.
Yes, sir.
You know, when they say that you put on that scarlet and purple robe, that means that it represents the Kundalini energy.
That's correct, brother.
From the root, which is the scarlet color, and your crown, which is purple.
Absolutely correct. This is the root. This is the branch of Jesse that is going to grow once we do what, Kalaya? Activate all of those energetic centers within us. Y'all know this.
Yep. And that's what it did. Thing is moving.
That's right. We know this, y'all. This is not something that is foreign.
Right.
So again, just like Kalaya stated, that this symbolism of a rod and a stem and a branch and roots is referring to the tree of life on top, on the left, and the tree of knowledge below. But again, the head, y'all, the tail is becoming the head. Are y'all with me?
Yeah.
King. Eitai.
Yes, sir.
In Black Panther, his suit, his whole armor suit is bulletproof, and it also absorbs energy for redistribution.
That's melanin.
Yes, absolutely.
That's activated melanin.
Absolutely.
It was in the movie. It was in the movie The Matrix. Now see,
Mm-hmm.
The Matrix was about this simulated reality that everyone was in. Neo,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Neo meaning the one, Neo, the one, disconnected.
Yes.
And when Morpheus, now Morpheus is the god of what? Dreams and sleep. This is what
Okay.
melanin is activated when? When you are asleep.
Yes.
And it gives us these dreams like Joseph had.
Mm-hmm.
That allows us to what? Be the guesser, to be prophets, to be prognosticators, to speak a
Mm-hmm.
word, and what? It comes true. So Morpheus
Mm-hmm.
represented melanin. All right,
Mm-hmm.
that was training him, and
Mm-hmm.
he said, wow. He said, when I activate all these powers, I'll be. Are you saying I'll be able to dodge bullets? He said, I'm telling you, when they are activated, you won't have to.
Right. Yes. Yes.
So,
Yes. Yes.
now, that's right. Let's close out real quick. I just want to get the sisterhood to this point within the next 5 minutes. In these emanations, do y'all see this word emanation?
Mm-hmm.
In these emanations of the tree of Da'ath, knowledge, death, you will find knowledge of good, of both good and evil within. You will then become what? As God. Fully activated powers. The
Mm-hmm.
Kaliph is a living map of what? Subconscious and the very power of the darkness. Now they say mind, we want to say inner self. We want to
Mm-hmm.
say inner self. The Kaliph is a place of shells. We're going to get to this. The meaning of the word related to the chthonic depths of the earth, the depths of the earth. See, it's going to come, you all, from the root, out of his roots.
Yes.
That's meaning the clipothic tree, that inner self. So we have to now, Nasik, go inside. Ain't nobody gonna come and touch us on the head or put some oil on our head and activate no power like that.
Mm-hmm.
We got to activate this ourselves, and we must trust ourselves. We must
Mm-hmm.
be willing hearers. The depths of the earth and the spirit, that's that inner spirit of man. all that you do should be results oriented. That is the obtainment and retention of individual power and strength. And we're going to end up where we ended yesterday. Thus, to become God, G-O-D, refers to the ability to generate, that is, create, operate, maintain or retain, and destroy, to end something. So this is, we must begin to activate that. We must begin to what? Now see, trust what we're hearing, not what we heard, not what we will hear, but what we are hearing what? K-N-O-W right now. We ain't got to wait on that. So
absolutely.
I just want to take a quick look at this just very quickly. I want to connect this power that is in the mouth. That is in the mouth is going to be activated primarily and first by the sisterhood. I'm giving you really an assignment. Start to bless yourself, your family, and please bless this process. And we're going to see the energy and the ability. First, intuitively, we're going to see it magnified. I guarantee you that. This is something that my Isha and myself have done with undeniable results. It works. I wouldn't be on here talking and claiming that I could do something if I wasn't already doing it.
Right.
I would not waste my time or your time. Again, we see in the second figure now the feminine in back of what? The masculine. This is what we were talking about, that mask. The feminine is going to speak through the masculine, and the masculine is going to speak through the feminine. This is the dynamic interplay and union of opposites. It's called the secret doctrine. The secret doctrine. Ain't no secret no more.
Right.
They tried to keep it secret. But now see, the things that are in darkness, see, with this ability, we can see into darkness. We can see into what has been hidden. This is what Nasik was talking about, the revelation what? Unto enlightenment.
Right.
Revelation unto enlightenment. So again, when we see the feminine element, she has both the rod and the sword. Look to the male. He only has the rod, and the sword he has not picked up yet.
Right.
Look at the male figure that is speaking through the feminine. We have the rod, Nasik, that has budded. But the sword, again, is we have not taken it up. I'm telling the sisters, start to speak. You have that ability. Isis is referred to as the virgin goddess. Now remember, Isis is Miriam. We started out talking about the Son of Man. Nasik was correct in saying that this woman would be what? In travail. And her travail would be related to what, Nasik? Childbirth.
Absolutely.
And she is going to give birth to what?
Male child.
A male child, meaning that she has to become activated first.
Yeah.
And then she activates, she not only activates, she protects the male child by virtue of the activation.
Right.
So Isis is referred to as that virgin. And she was considered more powerful than 1,000 soldiers. So the brothers always thought that one brother would put 1,000 to flight.
Right. Right.
Not until a sister activates you.
Right. Right. Right.
Eitai,
1 second, let me finish this out. And the clever tongue one, whose what? Speech never fails. Never. We must understand that this is the ability, brothers, that we want. But it's going to be through what? The activation of that feminine energy in us. Look at the
Yes.
extreme
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Can't have no ego about this now. That's
Mhm.
just the way it
Okay.
is.
Yes.
Just the way it is. So all of this mouth being like a sharp sword, uh, the double-edged sword coming out the mouth, that refers to the feminine energy. Now, yes, that rod can come out of my mouth just as well as it can come out of a sister's mouth. That two-edged sword can come out of my mouth just as well as it can come out of the sister's mouth, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
that feminine, we're both activating the feminine energy. But in the unfolded realm, right, of the
Mhm.
earth, the sisters are going to have to initiate it.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yes.
Now let me ask y'all Hebrew brothers about polygyny by consent. Whose consent is it?
Right. Come on now.
Come on, Eitai.
So I'm going to end right there. Kalai, go ahead, brother.
I wanted to bring up a point about, and you had mentioned about hearing without the ear, hearing without your ear, and
Correct.
seeing without your.
Uh-huh.
Well, here sometimes they say seem laid.
That's the Hebrew word, simle.
If you
Okay.
translate it, it means to open your heart or to feel with your heart.
Mm.
Yes.
That's that organ in your body that you can see with and that you can
Yes.
hear with.
Yes.
And that represents the balance. That's where the balance comes in of the masculine and the feminine. You hear what I'm saying?
Oh, we know this.
When you
Kalai. Absolutely.
So when you put your heart into something, you feel, you see, you know all of it because that represents that high energy because that's that balance between the male and the female energy.
High point, Kalaya.
Absolute.
High point, though. Yes.
Absolute high.
Mhm. Yes, it is. Yes.
Family, we know this.
Yes.
We just have to trust that we know it.
Mhm.
And it's just like Malkiel said, you've heard intuitively all the way up to this point where you're on this call.
Mhm.
Nasik, all we doing is confirming it.
Yes.
That's all. That's all. That's all.
That's all we doing.
Mhm.
Ain't nobody trying to lead nobody like that.
Right.
We've
Right.
had enough of that.
Yes.
This is about a collective effort. Like what we talked about, the call and response. It is about
Mhm.
a democratic communication,
Mhm.
a democratic synergy,
Mhm.
a democratic energetic network where we all play a part.
Yes.
So I'm going to end right there.